The sky had just stopped crying. Rainwater shimmered on broken metal as Joran stepped carefully through the wreckage, the distant hum of his scanner flickering with faint green pulses. He wasn't a soldier or a hero, just a salvage tech from the Earth Reclamation Division, assigned to recover tech from downed alien crafts that littered the post-war forests. This one, though, it wasn't like the others. The crashed vessel hummed softly, not dead but breathing slow. It sat crooked in the earth, a trail of scorched trees behind it like a long scar. Something about it felt strange, not threatening, not hostile, just waiting. Joran approached the main hatch, wiping rain from his face. The metal shifted under his hand, warm. It opened not with a hiss, but a sigh. Inside, the smell of burned wiring and something sweeter, like crushed wildflowers, hit him. He moved quietly, careful not to disturb the silence. That's when he heard it, a soft cry. Not of pain, not of anger, of need. He followed the sound through the narrow corridors until he reached a small chamber. The lights were dim, pulsing blue and white like a heartbeat. And there, curled in a blanket of woven crystal, holding two small alien children close to her chest, was her. She looked up. Her eyes were violet, glowing faintly, wide with fear but not panic. Her skin was pale lavender, her long hair braided, with silver strands. She didn't move to attack, didn't speak in alien tongue. Instead, her voice came low and trembling, in perfect Earth speech. Please, don't take them. Joran froze. I'm not here to hurt you, he said softly, kneeling slowly. I didn't know there were survivors. Her arms tightened around the children, small, fragile things with soft, glowing eyes and trembling wings. One peeked out from the folds of the blanket and blinked at him. My name is Joran, he said gently. I just came to check the wreck. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. My name is Alara, she said, voice barely louder than a whisper. And these are my younglings. I have no one else. Joran swallowed hard. Her voice wasn't robotic or cold like the others he'd encountered. It held sorrow, and something else. Hope. You're the first human I've seen who didn't raise a weapon, she said, looking away. After the peace treaty, they said Earth would be safe. They were wrong. Joran looked at her carefully. Her ship was damaged beyond repair. The rain had started again, soft patters against metal above. You're not safe here, he said. This forest's full of scavengers. And worse. Alara blinked. Then, you'll leave? He looked at the two small children sleeping against her. Something in his chest pulled tight. He'd seen many alien faces, many strange creatures since Earth opened its borders to those fleeing galactic wars. But this was the first time he felt like someone was looking at him. Not as a tool, not as a soldier, not as a curiosity, but as a man. I won't leave, he said. You can come with me. Her lips trembled. She looked at her children, then back to him. You would take us in? I don't have much, Joran admitted, but I have a cabin. It's warm, dry, safe. She nodded slowly. Then, let me gather their things. If they wake, they will be afraid. He helped her gently, wrapping the little ones in spare cloths, shielding them from the rain as they left the ship behind. When they reached the edge of the forest, the storm broke wide above them. Joran pulled off his coat and draped it over her and the children. She looked up at him, soaked and shivering, yet still holding that quiet grace. Human, she whispered, stopping him as they reached the cabin's door. Tonight, will you stay near? He blinked. Of course. I'll make sure nothing comes close. But her voice dropped to a hush, trembling like the wind. No, she said, eyes soft and uncertain. Stay with me. My children need a father. The cabin was small, tucked into the hillside like it had been there forever. Moss covered the roof, and old wind chimes whispered faintly as the breeze picked up. Joran hadn't brought anyone here in years. It was just him and silence, day after day. He never imagined an alien widow and her children would be the ones to break that silence. Inside, the warmth from the hearth flickered against the walls. Elara stepped in slowly, her bare feet making no sound on the wood floor. Joran had set out a few folded blankets, laid some dried food on the table, whatever he had left. The children stirred in her arms. She knelt on the rug near the fire, curling them beside her, singing something soft in a language Joran didn't understand. The melody felt ancient, full of starlight and sorrow. Joran stayed by the door for a moment, unsure. His world had shifted in just one night. The stars had always felt far away, untouchable, cold. But now one of them was breathing warm air into his cabin, cradling her children like the universe had broken, and only she remained to hold the pieces. "They're sleeping," Elara said, brushing their fine hair back gently. "They've never known rest like this, not since we lost their father." Joran knelt down beside her, not too close, not wanting to intrude. Was he lost in the crash? Her eyes didn't meet his. Long before, a raid. We fled again and again. There was no place to call home. Until this crash. And now, this. She looked at him then, really looked. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but with something deeper. Trust. Or maybe a longing she didn't know how to name. "You offered us shelter," she said, her voice low. "You didn't ask for anything." "I didn't need to," he replied, quietly. "You looked like you'd been asking for too long already." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Not awkward, not cold. Just still. Then she reached out, her fingers brushing his sleeve. Light as feathers, as if she was afraid he might vanish. "I don't ask this lightly," she whispered. "But if you stay tonight, lie nearby, maybe they'll feel safe. Maybe I will too." Joran didn't answer with words. He simply removed his boots, sat beside the fire, and pulled a blanket close, not touching her, not crossing any line, just there, present. The fire crackled. The children breathed softly. Rain tapped gently at the windows. Elara lay down beside them, watching the flames. "What kind of man are you, Joran?" He smiled faintly, his eyes growing heavy. "Just a quiet one, no medals, no stories. I fix things. I listen. That's about all." "That's more than I've ever had," she murmured. For a long time, nothing moved. Joran was almost asleep when he felt the shift, Elara's hand, reaching under the blanket, gently curling around his. Her fingers were cool, slender, not demanding, not pleading, just asking. He didn't pull away. In the deep of night, with stars, hidden behind clouds, her voice came again, barely a breath. "If we survive tomorrow, will you still be here?" He turned his head, eyes meeting hers across the glowing embers. "Yes," he said. That was all she needed to close her eyes. And that night, for the first time since her world fell apart, Elara slept without fear. Joran stayed awake a little longer. He wasn't sure when it happened, but somewhere in that soft silence between firelight and rain, something bloomed inside him. Not duty, not pity, something warmer, something dangerous, something like love. Morning came slowly. The rain had stopped. A soft mist wrapped around the trees outside, curling through the hills like breath. Joran stirred first, blinking against the light filtering through the window. He sat up quietly, not wanting to wake them. Elara was still curled beside the fire, her arms wrapped protectively around her children. They slept peacefully, their small, glowing wings now tucked close like folded petals. She looked so different in sleep, gentler. The strength that held her together during the day melted into vulnerability when her eyes were closed. Joren stood and stepped into the kitchen area, heating water for tea. He moved slowly, letting the quiet stay undisturbed. The scent of herbs soon filled the cabin, earthy and calming. Elara stirred not long after, her eyes fluttering open. She blinked at the unfamiliar roof, at the walls that didn't hum with alien tech. Then her gaze settled on Joren. "You stayed," she whispered. "I said I would," he replied, offering her a warm mug. She took it, her fingers brushing his, again. "I almost thought it was a dream." "It's not," he said with a small smile, "though I understand why it might feel like one." She sat up, brushing her hair back as the children began to wake. They stretched and yawned, then clung to her quietly. One looked up at Joren with wide, blinking eyes. He crouched down to their level and gave a soft smile. "Good morning, little ones." The smaller of the two reached toward him with tentative fingers, then quickly drew back, shy. "They've never been around humans," Elara said, watching carefully. "But they're curious." Joren reached into a drawer, pulling out a small wooden carving, an old trinket he'd made years ago. A tiny fox, its tail curled. He held it out. The child leaned forward, took it slowly, then clutched it tight to their chest. Elara's lips parted slightly in surprise. "You made that?" "Used to carve," Joren said. "When the days were long and quiet." Her voice was soft. "You're kind," he shrugged. "It's easy to be kind when someone needs it." "No," she said, more firmly now. "It's not. Most run from the weight of it." She looked at her children, then back to him. "I don't know how long we'll be able to stay here. If others find out about us." Joren nodded. "Then we stay quiet. I know how to disappear. You're not the first who's had to hide." A flicker of something stirred in her eyes. She reached out and touched his hand, not shy, not uncertain this time. "I was prepared to raise them alone," she said. "But when I saw you last night, when you didn't look at me with fear or disgust." She faltered. Joren didn't let her finish. He covered her hand with his own and met her gaze. "I see a mother who crossed stars to protect her children," he said. "That deserves respect, not fear." Silence stretched again, this time charged with something unspoken. Outside, birds began to chirp faintly. The fog thinned. Elara stood, holding one child in each arm. "If you'll have us," she said quietly, "we'll stay." He took a step closer. "I'll make space," he replied. "For all of you." Her lips parted, and for the first time, a small, genuine smile appeared. It was fragile, blooming like a flower just touched by sunlight. "I know this isn't how things usually happen," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But if you're willing, would you help me raise them? Not just as a guest, not as a protector." She took a breath. "But as their father." Joren didn't need time to think. "Yes," he said simply. Elara's eyes glistened. He took one of the children into his arms, careful and steady. The little one looked up at him, then curled into his chest like they'd been waiting for him all along. And for the first time in his life, Joren felt like he belonged to something greater than himself, a home, a family, a purpose born not from blood, but from choice, from love. Days passed gently. The cabin, once silent and cold, now hummed with life. Laughter, soft and strange, echoed off the walls. The children learned quickly, toddling on unsure feet, touching everything with wide-eyed wonder. They spoke in their own quiet language at times, but they were starting to mimic Joren's words, their voices sweet and curious. Joran had built a small swing outside, tying it to the thickest tree near the edge of the clearing. The children took turns, squealing softly, their glowing eyes lit with joy each time he gave a gentle push. Ilara watched from the porch, wrapped in a wool shawl, her smile like the dawn. "You've done more for them in days than most ever did in years," she said one evening as they sat on the porch steps together. The stars were beginning to show in the sky. "I didn't do much," Joran replied, brushing wood shavings from his hands. "They just needed a safe place, and someone who sees them." Ilara turned toward him, her gaze steady. "No, you listened. You played. You let them fall asleep on your chest without flinching." Joran looked down, remembering the warmth of the smallest one curled in his lap, snoring lightly. "They trust easily. I didn't expect that." "They feel what I feel," Ilara said softly. "When I'm at peace, they are too." He met her eyes. "Are you at peace?" Her answer was a whisper. "I think I'm starting to be." For a moment they just sat like that, close but not touching. The quiet between them was full of meaning. Joran could feel the shift, not just in her, but in himself. Something inside him was unfolding, growing. He turned to her, hesitating. "Ilara." "Yes?" "Do you miss your world?" She looked up at the stars. "Every day, but not the way it ended, not the pain, not the loneliness. Here, in this little place of yours, it feels more like home than the endless cities ever did." He nodded slowly. "And what about us?" Her breath caught. Then, bravely, she reached out and placed her hand on his knee, fingers cool against the fabric. "You don't know how many nights I whispered to the sky, begging someone would answer. Not a warrior, not a savior, just someone kind." Joran placed his hand gently over hers. "I'm not perfect," he said. "I'm not asking for perfect," she replied. "I'm asking for someone who won't disappear when things get hard." "I won't," he said quietly. "You have my word." She leaned in, resting her head on his shoulder. Her hair smelled like forest rain and wildflowers. Her body was warm beside his. "I never thought I'd feel this again," she said. "Not after him." Joran's voice was low, careful. "I'm not here to replace him, just to stand beside you, if you'll let me." "I want that," she whispered. "I want you." And with that, the last of the space between them faded. She turned her face up, and Joran leaned down. Their kiss was gentle, unhurried. A promise. When they pulled apart, her eyes sparkled. "I think," she said softly, "my children have already chosen you. I just had to catch up." Joran smiled, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "Then let's build something here. For them. For us." She nodded. Inside, the children were asleep, safe and warm. The stars above twinkled brighter than ever, and for the first time, the night didn't feel so lonely. The alien widow no longer whispered her quiet plea into the void, because now she had someone who answered. Spring melted into summer. The once lonely cabin was now filled with color. Wild flowers grew in little clay pots on the windowsills, and laughter echoed through the forest. The children ran barefoot through the grass, their tiny, glowing wings shimmering in the sunlight. They chased each other with sticks and feathers, pausing only to look back at Joran with wide smiles, as if asking him to join, and he always did. Every evening, Ilara sat on the porch with a basket of fruits or herbs, humming songs from her world, soft and melodic, like lullabies sung to stars. Joran would be nearby, working with his hands. He carved wooden toys, small animal figures, even a pair of wings like theirs, polished smooth and gifted with care. Love had settled between them like dew on leaves, quiet, present, and real. One night, as fireflies danced under the trees, Ilara stood beside Joran near the old swing. "They asked today," she said, smiling. "They asked why they didn't have your eyes." Joran chuckled. "What did you say?" "I told them eyes don't make a father," she whispered. "Actions do." He turned toward her, the golden light of dusk touching her cheeks. "What did they say to that?" "They said they want to grow up just like you." Joran's heart tightened. Not in pain, but in something full and heavy with meaning. "They already make me proud," he said. She stepped closer. "And me." They stood quietly for a moment, listening to the soft rustle of the leaves, the gentle murmurs of sleeping creatures, the distant laughter of children drifting from the cabin. Then Ilara took his hand. "There's a word in my language," she said. "It means more than mate, more than husband. It means the one your soul finds after loss, the one who stays even when the stars fall." Joran turned, brushing his fingers against hers. "What's the word?" She looked up, eyes glowing like moonlight on water. "Ilnavir," he repeated it softly, tasting the syllables. "Ilnavir." Ilara nodded. "You are mine, if you want to be." His answer came not in words, but in the way he pulled her into his arms, in the way his lips found hers under the silver sky, in the way they stood there, together, two worlds bound by love rather than fate. Later, as they lay in bed, Ilara, resting against his chest, the children asleep in the next room, she spoke in the hush between heartbeats. "When I landed on this planet," she said, "I thought I'd lost everything." "You hadn't," Joran whispered. "You just hadn't found us yet." Her fingers traced the lines of his hand. "You gave me a life I never dared dream." "You gave me something to fight for," he said, "something worth waking up to." Outside, the stars blinked quietly in approval. The forest, the earth, the sky, they all seemed to breathe easier, as if acknowledging that something whole had been mended. And in a small wooden cabin in the hills, a human and an alien widow slept side by side, surrounded by the soft sounds of love and laughter, no longer strangers, no longer broken, just a family, finally complete.